Hey Channel Insiders, welcome back to Channel Insider Partner POV, your source for untapped opportunities and unfiltered opinions in the IT channel, all to help you make better business decisions. I'm your host, Katie Bavoso. My guest in this episode is Armon Aghaie, CRO of OnePath, a true end-to-end managed service provider. Armon explains his approach to building trust with clients and his process of standardizing IT across organizations, whether it's a company owned by private equity or it's a senior living care facility. Plus, he goes into how a soured customer relationship can be saved with an open and honest conversation. How are you doing? You fairly caffeinated?
Excellent. Not caffeinated enough lately, or yet. I guess not caffeinated enough yet.
I'm upset nobody hands one to me when I wake up in the morning. So
this right there, I would pay good money for that service. Good money.
Talk to me about what OnePath is and the services and solutions that you offer.
We're a managed services provider. We specifically target the mid-market, and it's been a bit of an interesting journey to get to that place. We provide a series of services to our clients. We generally bucket them based off of various categories: cloud, security, IT services, etc., that type of lingo. The original company is about 25 years old, not under the original OnePath name. The original company was called Blue Wave Computing.
What about your customers? What verticals do they typically operate in, and how about their size?
So we call it mid-size enterprise, which really is mid-market. And we're looking at that, I would call it 100 minimum to maximum 5,000 employees. We generally settle in that 250 to about 2,000 range is our sweet spot. Most MSPs are specifically focused on the enterprise or specifically focused on SMB. And that's kind of the thesis for how we've molded this company over the last 6-ish, 7-ish years since I've been here, is there's a gap in the middle, right? There's this segment of companies that are all very large, either by revenue or by employee count, sometimes both. And they're not well served. They have a specific niche in terms of what they need. They're not ready to call themselves enterprise, and they just want to outsource help desk only type work where it's very transactional. How low can you get the per ticket price? We don't really care who's on the other end of the phone. And then the SMB market, which is really focused on, okay, we really want to know the person on the other end of the phone. I want to speak to Armon. I want to speak to Katie. I want to speak to John. I want to speak to Allison, whatever that might be. And so I remember actually 4 years ago when we went through a pretty major turnaround, we sat in the room and we said, what does the mid-market want? At the end of that conversation, we realized it's kind of a blend of these two things. They want to be connected to their provider. They still want to know the person on the other end of the phone, first name basis, but they need more enterprise class and mature scaled technologies, right? That are both at a point where they're scaled for large businesses today, but they can scale with businesses that are growing pretty rapidly. And so we were able to structure the company around that kind of ethos, and we found a lot of success. If you would have asked me who our customers are a year ago, 2 years ago, I would have said very simply, professional services finance, professional services legal, manufacturing, or healthcare. And what we've realized is it's actually less about the industry and it's more about the investment structure of the company. Where we really, really shine and where we've been able to kind of hone both our marketing and our client-facing efforts is private equity-backed organizations that have a major growth and investment thesis. And the reason I say it like that is because there's a couple similarities all of these companies have regardless of what industry they're in. One, they need I'm going to call it tricky financing that is necessary when you have a private equity owner. Many will understand what I mean by that. They have an expectation that they are going to grow rapidly through organic and inorganic means. So they have a large number of offices or disparate companies that they're trying to bring in rapidly, and they all need to be integrated with disparate technologies, disparate systems, disparate cultures, and they need a rapid, I'm going to say again, integration plan associated with their investment thesis. And then number 3, they see technology as a fundamental path towards their ability to scale. And so all these companies end up having employees across the nation, multiple different offices, again, multiple different cultures. And we found a niche in really being able to support them in that growth and investment thesis and deliver IT services along the way.
One of the particular verticals that you tote on your site is senior living. Why is this a specialty or a niche for OnePath, and what does this industry often lack? Because in my mind, I would roll it up under healthcare. So how does it differ from that?
Healthcare is a very vast industry, right? And across the spectrum of healthcare, we look at it as if like, okay, well, they're under HIPAA requirements. So there's certain regulations or there's certain audits, specifications that these companies are going to have to follow. And so they're all the same. Well, it's not true at all. A dentist's office operates very differently than an emergency room, operates very differently than an outpatient surgery center, operates very differently than an in-person care facility. And while they might be in the same industry, their core ethos is the same, delivering health services to individuals. The way their organization is structured is very different. And so when you look at healthcare as a whole, at one point we said healthcare, and we realized, oh, there's like everything is in healthcare. Do we want Piedmont Hospital down the street to give us a call and we do all of their IT services? Maybe. But if we think about the clients we have today, they're not the type of client that we're picking up, generally speaking. Why is that? Well, hospital systems aren't in these massive, high-growth, multi-site, private equity-backed kind of structures that I mentioned. Why senior living? Well, a few things. One, they have an interesting business use case that operates very similarly to a lot of the other customers we support that aren't in the healthcare industry. And that's that most of their users are not technical. They are often in this cycle where they're getting bought up and gobbled up. A conglomerate of senior care facilities that's going around and buying up mom and pop shops, consolidating into what is now a 50-site organization, all that needs to standardize its technology stack. And so when you look at senior living specifically, and there's some others that are doing this, you see a lot of outpatient surgery centers are doing this. Sometimes urgent care is doing this. But what ends up happening is that same kind of structure that I defined when I was talking about the private equity market exists exactly within the senior living space. And so we can find those companies that are not necessarily, I'm just a small senior living facility. I have 100 beds. I have this many rooms. I have this much, need. But we can find the organization saying, okay, I'm going and I'm buying up all the other senior care facilities that exist in the nation. I'm going to standardize finance, IT, I'm going to standardize HR, and I'm going to have these kind of corporate shared services functions that are provided to all of them, reduce my costs that way. But each of these facilities is going to rebrand under this one umbrella. And now, OnePath, we get to support that much bigger entity.
Let's talk more about customers, because when I first met with you, you told me that you don't think the MSP industry has done a very good job in creating an easy to understand catalog for customers to be able to engage with you. And you're wondering, how can we kind of fix that? How can we make that better this year? First of all, elaborate on your way of thinking of that for me. Tell me a little bit more about why you think that, and then talk to me about how OnePath is changing the way that customers are able to engage with you, basically to make it an easier, smoother experience for them.
I love this industry for many reasons, and I think we have a lot of immaturities in this industry. The idea of sales, marketing, product development, these things are very foreign to us. We're a very engineering-led industry. It makes us strong. We're a technical-led industry. Most of the owner-operators in this industry grew up through the engineering and operations ranks, and there's a lot of value and merit in that. What you potentially lose in that structure is common practices that help organizations scale rapidly. And those practices have been refined in other industries, software as a service, in infrastructure as a service markets, in security as a service markets. And so there's a lot of wisdom that exists kind of outside of our MSP bubble around how to build and grow organizations. How do you market yourself? How do you build a brand? How do you go to market? How do you structure a product portfolio? And so I tend to look at us, again, the whole of the MSP industry, as very immature in these regards, but that presents a pretty cool opportunity to be innovative in how we go to market with our services, with our product packaging, et cetera, et cetera. When I look at us specifically, and I look at the market we're going after, we're saying we're going after a market that's not well defined, right? It's not a market that a bunch of other people are going after. It's new in that regard, right? It has this specific need. I want local feeling, plus I want technology expertise. So that influences the product structure. And then we're saying at the same time that the industry as a whole doesn't have a lot of mature product development experience. So that influences how we go and say, okay, well, wait a second, this is how we do it as an industry. But we don't necessarily think that our industry is very mature in this regard. Is the commonly practiced way the right way? Maybe not. And so you start to look at your organization and say, okay, at its core, am I able to facilitate what my clients need as it relates to understanding what they're buying from us, understanding what they're not, because it can't be everything for free, right? And adding together a, call it, collection of products and services that both is profitable for me and is valuable for my clients. And those questions ultimately led to the answer, I think we could do better. And so this year for me is a lot of spending time focused on, first of all, what other industries have done to get their products and services in the hands of their clients and make it easy for their clients to buy more when they're ready, when they're looking, right? And I use that when they're looking because, there's an industry that's done great at figuring out how to help their clients buy more, but they have this stigma because they're too pushy. Used car sales, right? We don't want to go that far, but we also want to make sure that we have the mechanism to be there when our client is ready and they're looking. And so that presents a unique opportunity. And number 3, just because we're going after a different market doesn't mean we lose the core responsibility of an MSP to itself, which is to standardize on a reference architecture. And so how do we build a reference architecture that aligns well to this mid-market client such that we can have the same standards that MSPs need to have to be efficient, responsive, frankly, good when supporting their clients? Because if we don't have that, then we're just, we're playing with one arm tied behind our back, so to speak. So those questions continued to result in unknowns. And now we're getting to sit down and think about, okay, I think there really is new innovative ways to structure product catalogs that allow for some level of flexibility within our clients, but also allow us to achieve standardization at the same time. And we need to figure out how to structure those things. And that's where we're at on our journey, at least right now.
I think it also goes back to what you said earlier when considering your clients. Not every industry, or at least not every person who is supporting the majority of that industry, is a tech-focused person. So you want to consider meeting your customers where they're at. But I would love to hear a success story of OnePath working with a customer to be able to not only solve their challenges, but build a relationship that is lasted into the future, to be able to show that you're an extension of their team.
Yeah, I really like, by the way, the use of the extension of their team. Really like that, because I think that's a critical kind of foundational moral pillar that MSPs have to stand on, and we remind ourselves of it all the time. We're really aggressive if somebody says, for example, it's not rocket science, or we're not saving babies here. And we'll say things like, wait a second, you don't know if the person that's calling you is actually saving a baby right now. Right. So treat your work with a certain level of importance. From a case study perspective, the first client that comes to mind that I think is a good litmus for the type of work we do in general is actually a financial services company. So they're a payment processing company that buys up specialized POS vendors. So people who've created customized POS softwares and systems. Unfortunately, I can't say their name, but who've created customized POS systems for various industries. And so I need a POS system for my wedding gown business or for my limo business. And they find these organizations and they bring them into their ecosystem. And it's a really cool relationship, but it's also a cool growth structure. I've watched them grow substantially. Holy cow. In the last 3 years. There have been moments when they were ready to leave us, actually. And at one point they actually did give us formal notice of their departure. And this is a very important client for us. And throughout that, and despite formal termination notices, we've maintained a healthy and strengthening relationship over time. And there's really two pillars to how we've done that. The first is we have a very honest conversation between us. I'm very forthcoming with information about where challenges might be, what's going well, what's going not with their respective leadership. And so I peel back the proverbial curtain, if you say, to give them a peek at inside the organization, and we have very honest conversations. And so trust has organically formed. And I think this is important for everybody to understand, because there's this stigma that surrounds salespeople, that they're used car salesmen, sharky, manipulative, this, we know the stigma, we know the stereotype. And I'd say the thing that differentiates really excellent sales individuals from really poor ones is that the excellent sales individuals understand fundamentally their job is to solve problems and connect people. And honesty is the only option. There's not, and I'm talking about more than telling the truth. I'm talking about honesty, real honesty. It's a necessary and fundamental requirement. And so we have that with this client, and we're very honest with each other. We talk to each other about what's going on. And so when they have information that they need to bring to us, hey, you weren't doing too well at this point in time. You're really hurting us. The stereotype or the stigma surrounding your company is not very good right now. We get that information and we're able to course correct. And when we get in the room, we actually listen to them. We say, okay, we hear you. We're going to do something about this. And then we actually do something about it. And they've cited that as a very big factor as to why they stayed. They wanted somebody who can scale. We have that more than almost any other MSP has that. We've really built that kind of scale capability. But they want to make sure that somebody is going to learn and grow with them. And so they've cited that as a very important factor, is you guys aren't perfect. But when we bring something up, you address it honestly, you address it truly, and we actually get better together. And we just don't know if we're going to get that somewhere else. The other thing is we listen to our clients consistently in terms of building our operational revenue, just collective roadmaps. So we have a 3-tiered system of how we engage with our clients. The first is our client executives, the standard account management structure where, we're engaged in regular conversation, we're regularly meeting, et cetera, et cetera. That's pretty common. The second is that each client at one path, above a certain size, every client that's in our TCP or ICP has an executive sponsor. So our client executives are actually empowered to bring an executive sponsor of their choosing that matches the specific needs of the clients. For example, if it's a client that's hyper growth focused, is generally going to be very rapid in their need for additional scopes, additional problems that they need to solve, they're probably going to bring me. If it's a very finance-oriented client, they want to understand how they can manipulate numbers to their advantage, they'll bring our CFO, et cetera. And so there's a list of many executives here that they can essentially say, I want you tagged in for this call. I want you tagged in for this call. And that in itself brings a different level of expertise and a different level of relationship with the client. And the third tier is called the voice of the customer. And so we started this last year. We're going to expand it over time, but there's a small group of clients right now, 10, that meet with me personally every quarter, and we review everything from our operational roadmaps to our communication plans. Last time we had marketing come on and say, what content that we produce would be valuable? Like, how do I make content such that you want to engage with my newsletter, whatever it might be? And we literally evolve our entire roadmap, strategic roadmap, our operational roadmap, based on the feedback that comes from those 3 communication channels. And everybody is empowered to speak honestly, speak very openly, and bring problems to the forefront, because our goal is to solve problems. Can't solve them unless you find them.
My conversation with Armon is only just beginning. Come back on Thursday for part 2 of our interview. Don't forget, you can watch all episodes of Channel Insider Partner POV on channelinsider.com or on YouTube at channelinsider_news and trends. You can also listen to the audio format of all episodes on your favorite podcast listening platform. Want to be on the show? Email me at partnerpov@channelinsider.com. Once again, I'm Katie Bavoso, and I'll see you next time.